Hi, my name is Ali Ilyas and I'm a Foundation Year 2 doctor working at Dartford Hospital in Plymouth. For those of you who don't know where Plymouth is, it's in the southwest of England and it's a part of the peninsula. I'm originally Pakistani, born in Ireland but raised in Saudi Arabia. I went to British school there and I ended up graduating and applying to medical school in Bahrain. Now Bahrain is an island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. The university I studied at was the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland in Bahrain. I'm currently doing my F2 year in Dartford Hospital in Plymouth. I'm working as a Foundation Year 2 doctor, currently in Obs and Gynae. I also did my F1 here as well in Dartford Hospital. The rotations I did was colorectal, psych liaison, cardiology, respiratory, and now Obs and Gynae.
Why did you come to the UK?
So the reason why I chose to work in the UK were multiple reasons. A, my degree was Irish, so I felt that the system that I was being taught in school was very similar to the UK, if not Ireland, obviously. So I felt that the education would be more easily applicable to the work style here in the NHS. And to not my surprise, it was the case. Another reason why I wanted to apply to the foundation program was because I feel that their training program is quite structured and it's quite adequate for junior doctors starting to become actual junior doctors, in a sense that you get to work in different specialties, different variety of jobs. It kind of just makes you an overall well-rounded doctor, I think.
How has it been integrating professionally and socially, culturally?
When I was given my job in Plymouth, I was quite daunted by the process because I was told that Plymouth wasn't that quite diverse, it was quite rural, not that economically developed, so I really didn't know what to expect when I came here. In fact, the funny story is when I first came here, I literally just went out for a walk in town and I stumbled upon the Hoe and it was absolutely gorgeous. Like, it felt like I was on holiday. So there was a bit of culture shock there. For those of you who don't know, where I was raised in Saudi Arabia and in Bahrain, a lot of it was sand. You know, there wasn't that much greenery, there wasn't that much water. I mean, obviously there's water present, there's not oceans or anything like that. Whereas in Plymouth and in the UK, it's very green, always raining, very opposite to Saudi Arabia style. So there was a bit of a culture shock there in that sense. In addition to this, in Saudi Arabia, eating and going out, the social lifestyle was very different to how it was in the UK. In Saudi Arabia, things are open till midnight. All the malls are open till midnight. People can go and chill out till midnight. Whereas in the UK, I feel like after 9 everything closes, or after 8 everything closes. So there was a bit of hesitancy there. I was like, okay, everything closes at 6. What am I going to do with the rest of my day? In terms of cultural diversity, when I did get here, it was quite unique in a sense that I felt that there was a lot of old people here. Like, the demographic of the people here were definitely people who were a lot senior status, whether they were retirees or people who were basically our parents' ages. And feeling like a young working individual in that place kind of felt really strange. I don't know how to describe it. It just felt that all my patients were elderly. Every time I go for a walk or go for a drink outside, it's just everyone is old and they're walking their dog and they're really cute and retired, and it just felt that I came here too early almost. I felt I should have come here at least 20-30 years from now. But I think that's just my own personal experience of Plymouth. As a Muslim, living in Saudi Arabia was very easy, but obviously coming to a place like the UK, I understand that obviously places like London, Leeds, Birmingham, Manchester, very welcoming to Islamic culture and obviously halal food, whereas Plymouth obviously doesn't have that much of a Muslim population, so it's quite difficult to get halal food. Having said that, in the last few years it has picked up a bit and there are halal places, so again, adaptability wasn't that difficult for me. Professionally speaking, there's definitely a different kind of setting, I believe, professionally when it comes to the workplace. When I started working in the NHS here, I felt that the juniors were very well supported by the registrars and the consultants. Whenever we had questions, I wasn't really afraid to go and speak to my registrars and be like, hi, listen, I'm new and I have never worked in the UK. I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please just talk it through with me? And they would say, oh, so this is how you have to do it. This is your ATE assessment. They'd run sim sessions. They'd train you. They'd actually physically teach you how to be a doctor. Whereas I feel like, I mean, I may be wrong about this in other countries, but in Bahrain, it was more like you're expected to know these things already. Like, okay, you're a doctor, good, you're a doctor, you need to be able to go on and be a doctor, essentially. Whereas I feel like over here, it's a proper structured training program essentially.
What are the best aspects of working in the UK? What do you like?
What I love about the UK is actually I keep emphasizing on the NHS Foundation program of how well it's integrated into teaching how to become a doctor in a sense. It's not that when you start, they're like, okay, you need to now just swim essentially. There are some specialties where, sink or swim, but everyone ends up swimming. But more or less of the time, like I said, you're kind of well supported. The other thing I really liked about working in the UK as well is that you are bound, specifically in the foundation program, you're bound in one place initially, but as your career develops and it progresses, when you finish your F1 and F2, you apply for CST or IMT or any other specialties, you can find yourself not in this part of the UK, you can find yourself in a different part of the UK where you might be able to adapt even better. Some people think of that as a disadvantage because they like the place that they're staying in, they maybe want to stay with family, whatever have you, but I think there's pros and cons to both. The reason why I'd like to stay in the UK to continue working is because of how well integrated the structure is of the training program. I feel that I couldn't leave the UK without becoming a consultant. Granted, it's very competitive and you'll have to compete with your colleagues, your friends, whoever have you, but they give you the means to do that. They kind of guide you and tell you, okay, look, if you really want to get into this training program, you have to do a certain amount of projects, you need to pass these amount of exams or these amount of courses. It's very well taught to everybody that this is how you have to kind of progress in your career. What else I like about the UK is actually it's quite, as a country, it's quite small. So even if you live in Plymouth, which is southwest of England, as I mentioned, you could easily take a train down to London, or I say up to like east to London, and it's the 3-hour train, but then you can get all the diversity you want, all the busy, city lights, you can get that lifestyle if you want it too. So it's not that you're completely surrounded by just old people and water. That's not how it works. You can easily go wherever you want.
What are the worst aspects of working in the UK?
I think they're quite subjective as well. A lot of people think that it's really, really bad and sometimes it's really horrible. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. I sound really vague, but I'll give you an example. When I worked in respiratory medicine, I thought that we were quite well staffed when I was working there, and I would finish on time. I would have my senior support. My seniors would teach me actively, not just grill me and make me feel like crap if I didn't know myself. They would actively teach me. Whereas I feel that, as I've gone on, other foundation year doctors have not enjoyed their time in reps, only because they've just been really low staffed. So if you're low staffed, you don't get to do your jobs on time, which means you don't get to go home on time. I mean, you're allowed to go home on time, but you don't feel like going home on time because you end up jeopardizing the safety of patients. You start not getting jobs done. You worry that the consultant might be upset at you tomorrow, whatever have you. But essentially, you don't end up going home on time. You feel guilty, and I feel like that's probably the drawback of the NHS in that sense. That when you're understaffed and it's bad, it's actually horrible, and you genuinely do not feel like a human. Almost, you don't feel like a doctor. You just feel like a task monkey doing the day jobs and just making sure you clock in, clock out, and try to get stuff done as soon as possible. But that's only when it's bad. But when it's great, honestly, like when I was in respiratory medicine, I never had that experience. So like I said, it's quite subjective. In addition to that, people talk to me about pay. There's a lot of talk about how the NHS staff don't get paid enough. They deserve a lot more. That is again quite subjective thing. People will think that yes, we definitely need to get paid more, especially in the COVID pandemic, especially because we do go risk our lives to help people. I agree with that to a certain degree, but at the same time, it's not like that we get paid absolutely nothing either. It's not like we're working for free. Granted, if you're working late and you stay late, till like 8 p.m. when you should have left at 5, maybe you are working for free. But like I said, it's quite like if you are working 8 to 5 as a foundation year 2 doctor, your taking home salary would be around about between 2,200 and 2,500 pounds at least a month, right? That's after tax, that's after your national insurance. For people who have student loan, maybe you have to cut off another few £100. And if you're in F1, you're earning around 1,800 at the lowest, up to around 2,200 at the highest, depending on your on-calls, nights, shift pattern works, etc. So if you live in a place like Plymouth where the cost of living isn't that expensive, and even if it is, it goes up to maybe 700, 800 pounds a month on rent, you could still make a bit of savings because it's not that expensive to eat or travel. Whereas if you lived in a place like London, where your rent would be around 1,200 for a cupboard, essentially, obviously you will be thinking, oh, I deserve to get paid more. I obviously worked my guts off for everything, and I still can't afford to live. This is just the way of the UK is. If you live in an expensive place, everyone gets paid the same. It's unfortunate. It's just how the system works, which is, I guess, another drawback into the NHS in general.
Will you stay, and why? Why should someone consider the UK?
The reason why I would stay in the UK, I think I've touched on this point quite a few times. My dad would always tell me this: if you go to the UK, you won't leave the UK without becoming a consultant, because the training program is so well structured. You have your F1 and F2. You do your 3 rotations in F1. You pass your ARCP, which is your end of year report, basically. Then you do your F2. You do 3 rotations, and you apply for then your either intermediate medical training if you want to go into the medical side of things, or you apply to core surgical training if you want to go to the surgical side of things. There are other pathways like for peds, psych, GP, obs and gynae, etc. I'm pretty sure there'll be another video that will talk about these kind of pathways, but my point is it's quite well integrated. Once you finish your intermediate training, you then have to apply for specialist training. And once you apply for that and you get it, you work another 3, 4, 5 years and you can become a consultant. It's like going through school, essentially. You pass year 1, you pass year 2, you move on to year 3, year 4, year 5, and go all the way up until you finish your exams, essentially. And next thing you know, you're a consultant. It takes time, but overall, I think that you become a better, well-rounded doctor in comparison to other systems like the US, Canada, even the Middle East. They tend to just put you in one specialty and you just kind of only know that specialty. So if you were an orthopedic surgeon in Canada or the US, don't show them an ECG. They won't know what it looks like. You know, like it's that kind of a caveat that comes in. Whereas I feel like in the UK, yeah, you'll have a few orthopedic surgeons that don't know what an ECG is, but you'll have a few that will be like, oh, I remember I did cardiology as an F1. I still remember what ST elevation looks like. But that is kind of my point here. Would I recommend it to others? I would personally. The UK system, as many faults as the NHS has, they will make a good doctor out of you. And if you're trying to become a good doctor and the best doctor that you can be, the UK provides you that, whether it be through education, academics, or whether it be through active training, courses, just a support system. And for people who are coming from obviously abroad, the UK is becoming more diverse more than ever. I mean, and I'm not even just talking about places like London, Leeds, Birmingham, Manchester. I'm talking about places like Plymouth. Like Plymouth has, I mentioned, the population demography is all old people, but there's a medical university here. There's a lot of young people here, a lot of international people here. So I always get confused. I walk around thinking, there's grandma, granddad, but then there's also a bunch of delinquents on the other side. So it's a give or take. So if you can have that in Plymouth, you can definitely have that anywhere else. Bonus things to say, I mean, for international people coming here, there's always a worry about racism. It's something that is common and people will feel it, whether it's not actively spoken about or said. Plymouth was also, people told me about Plymouth that, oh, by the way, be careful, people might be racist. I haven't personally experienced any active racism as such, but rather than racism, I think it comes off as more ignorance. The people just look at you and they don't know who you are, where you're from, because you're not from the UK, you're not Caucasian, you're not you're not a Christian, you're not whatever have you, essentially. You don't look like us. So they have this kind of hesitancy to kind of get to, become friendly or stuff. Not that they're not impolite, they're very polite, but they don't show that forwardness, friendliness that other places do, for example. But having said that, nobody's actively said something derogatory towards me that's made me feel like, okay, cool, people are racist here. That's definitely not the case. In addition to that, I mean, like I said, demographic, people are old here, people have really old mentality, so you're almost kind of, especially as a doctor, you kind of have to put that front up that even if they're being racist, you have to kind of take it on the chin and be like, okay, look, these guys are old, they're set in their ways, we're still here to treat them. It's as long as they're not being directly disrespectful, we're meant to turn the other cheek, essentially.